So, hi, I'm Megha, and I'm interviewing you for Magic of India on your wonderful audiobook on a brief history of Indian independence. As you know, I have some questions. So what inspired you to create the audiobook in the first place?
For me, it was partly because of my time in school as well. I do A-level history, and during my studies, I found that we didn't actually learn anything about British imperial history and the history of the British Empire and what they had done to India. So I thought it would be really interesting, and I'm sure Aarush agrees, to write and narrate the audiobook.
So how long did it take you to create the audiobook?
Well, that was about a year and a half, we could say, because we started early 2019 and then we continued on into 2020. So that was our busiest year, but then the pandemic struck and we had school. So we had kind of a gap there, but if you take all the time we spent on it, it was about a year and a half.
Okay. So did you have fun creating it together?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, especially the recording process. Although it was quite long, it took us many hours, more than a day, but it was very fun.
So what was your favourite part of the process of creating the audiobook? So the recording, the research?
Well, for me, it was the time that came right after the research and right before actually starting to write it, because that was the part where we could be like at our most creative. We were kind of expansive with our words. It was kind of like telling yourself the story. So I enjoyed that part the most.
For me, I enjoyed the recording process the most. I think actually narrating the audiobook at the end, after everything had come together and we had spent so long editing it, it was nice to finally actually narrate it.
Okay. So there is so much information in your podcast, so could you tell us a bit about your sources and your research?
Yeah, so the first thing we did was actually refer to a book. It's called The Children's History of Indian Independence by Subhadra Sen. So what we used that for was to get a kind of basic idea of how the story ought to flow, as in the main landmarks we ought to hit along our retelling of the story. But then where we actually got our information from, since we wanted this to be authentic and at least somewhat new, was online forums and assorted articles where we actually got first-hand accounts from people on the field, historical artifacts and other such first-hand sources of material that could actually give our story a bit more verisimilitude. So that was one thing that we did use to write it.
Yeah, there was a lot of collating of various sources and various pieces of information, because we wanted to make it something that was our own, not just rehashing of a history of independence that someone had already written.
Yeah. So how do you know each other? And obviously you said already that you use Skype and Zoom to practice and record it, right?
Yeah.
I do A-level history, and as I already mentioned, and so we needed another person that was also interested in history and ideally Indian. I'm British Indian and Aarush has grown up in India, to show both sides. So my mum had a friend in India who used to be Aarush's principal. She introduced us to Aarush. We went to India in July, August 2019. We met at his house and started writing it and finishing it over the next year and a half, and then narrated it.
You've been very inspiring, so what is your advice to children like me aspiring to create something?
I suppose, going off the experience from this book, the only advice I can really give is don't pass an opportunity up, because that's essentially how I got to be able to do this. So yeah, that's my bit.
For me, it's continue to read, and if you find something that you really enjoy when you read, speak up about it and use your voice to tell other people about why you're interested in it and what they can learn from it. So that's how I got to do this project as well. I thought history was interesting. I always found history interesting. And so it was an opportunity to tell people about a history that, at least in the UK, has been largely forgotten.
It has been amazing interviewing you and I really enjoyed it. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you too, and thank you to the Magic of India for having us launch this book with you. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to the Magic of India for the work you do in reconnecting people of Indian heritage in the UK back to their roots.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.